What a difference a day makes. Just 24 hours ago, I was like, this poster could be better. But what I wouldn't give now for a trailer that looked more like this poster. Now, I'm not saying this movie's hopeless, that we should just write it off right now. But I think this is a problem with Hollywood overall, by the way, not just with DC. But we see a lot of problems that are so obvious, a lot of issues that we're like, how did this even happen? Right? All right, so the first thing I want to say is that I think my $400 million, off the cuff prediction that I made in my trailer reaction is actually right on the money, spot on. So it's not. I don't think it's going to perform as poorly as the Marvels and Birds of Prey, which shockingly, despite Birds of Prey having to deal with the beginnings of the pandemic, actually performed very similarly. And instead, I said around 400. Well, look at this. That puts it right in league with Black Widow and Thunderbolts. Black Widow, of course, is on the tail end of the pandemic and was day and date on Disney Plus. So, there's some question mark there. But now, then when you see how Thunderbolts performed, which was technically Black Widow too, maybe it wouldn't have done much better in theaters. And that's where I see this. That's where I see this landing, to be honest with you, right in the Thunderbolts range. And I think some people will love it as much as they love Thunderbolts. Some of you, in fact, said you saw similarities, forget with Carol Danvers, with Yelena Belova, which I think is true. I do see a similarity there. And, I don't, look, I really like Millie Alcock. I think she's fantastic. I like what she's doing here. So, again, I feel like I wish that studios and franchise executives would take better care of their actors. To some degree, I feel like James Gunn set Millie Alcock out to the mercy of the internet. Same way that Star Wars did with Daisy Ridley. And that's unfortunate. I wish she was as looked after as well as David Cornsweet ended up being. But maybe, that ended up, I didn't think the movie would be as good as it was. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised with Supergirl as well. So here's a big question that has sprung out of this trailer. Should DC feel different than Marvel? I mean, Zaz, he wanted to turn his DC franchise into Marvel. He first wanted to hire Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige said, no, I'm going to stay here instead and ruin Marvel. But then, Zazzy went and got who Feige at one point had been grooming to take Marvel over from him, but then those tweets got him fired and rehired, but, torpedoed that whole idea and set James Gunn up here, let him set up shop with DC. And it's extremely similar, very similar. And one of the things that I think people liked about not just DC, but Warner Brothers, was that it felt like the anti-Disney. It was the antithesis of Disney. And that's always kind of been why the hallmark of Warner Brothers, and why, even though Universal is more competitive with Disney at the box office to a degree, why people instead always gravitate towards Warner Brothers versus Disney. I think that you wouldn't know it from this poster, but in the actual trailer, it's a drabber look. It looks more like Peacemaker. It looks more like Guardians of the Galaxy. It looks a little bit, I'm scared, a little bit like the upcoming Lanterns show. I really liked the vibrancy of Superman. I mean, they had a freaking rainbow in one of their key sequences, and I loved it. But I'm surprised at the lack of color here. One of the things about the original comic that was so incredible. I know a lot of you have only heard of the comic. I'm surprised so many people in the comments are like, oh yeah, I'm excited for them to adapt this story. Well, you haven't actually read the story. And a big part of it, not only is it a compelling story, but the visuals were so unique and so vibrant and really special. And I think, they haven't repeated them here. And I think part of that might be budgetary issues, to be honest with you. Peacemaker had to cheap out on its space prison planet. You were like, that just looks like a field, in America. And I mean, like, you didn't even go to a different country, man. At least Christopher Nolan travels the globe. And, this looks like, it would be hard to tell, she was traveling to a different planet, right? She looks like she's on Planet Soundstage. And that's a little bit frustrating. So we'll see. And so I have heard there are some budget problems with Man of Tomorrow, which are affecting casting choices. I mean, you got to spend money to make money, man. And I mean, again, I can understand financial restrictions, but when you started to see this stuff come together, you would think you'd go, maybe you could have a little more money, right? I mean, I would like to make some money off of this. Superman did okay, but I think the Superman, again, we didn't know when we were better off. I mean, this is, I thought we were going to build. Feels a little like a backslide. All right, so we're going to go through the trailer. I'm excited to discuss it with you. Again, I'm all in on Millie Alcock. In fact, I think she's going to get a lot more support from women than men. But I don't know how many women would show up to see this in theaters. I have to say, I showed the posters to some female friends of mine because I was looking for backup on the not liking the hair. And I have to say that my female friends were like, who have checked out on comic book movies overall, were like, this intrigues me. They liked her attitude. So, hey, maybe it'll have some Cruella DNA in there, right? Because Lord knows women didn't go and see the Marvels. Okay. All right. So let's go through this trailer here. All right. So Krypto, I liked seeing Krypto. I mean, I liked him. I think he's a good dog. And I have to say, he must be a huge part of James Gunn's life. And James Gunn must be endlessly entertained by Krypto. And that's great, but he's not our dog. That's something to consider. But that looks like a space record player. I'm not sure what language that is, right? And space alcohol. So, I mean, James Gunn is like, it's not the same as Guardians of the Galaxy. Star-Lord uses a cassette player and Supergirl's all in on vinyl. Thank you very much. I'm like, what? All right, so very Star-Lord's introduction in Guardians of the Galaxy, even down to the messy ship that has a lot of problems. Now, all right, so, whoa. Now, a lot of you took a big issue with this scene as being disrespectful to Superman. I didn't see it that way, to be honest with you. First, I saw the commentary, Superman being a big hero, right? And then when you take a closer look, you see that Supergirl has also made the front page, thank you very much, but for just rescuing a cat. Hey, Superman would be proud to rescue a cat. It's all in the attitude, Kara. You ever think of that? Like Superman feels all jobs, big or small, are important. He'd be fine if you flipped those headlines and photos. Which maybe that's something Kara will discover during the context of the context of this film. But yeah, I think that's really, and by the way, Supergirl is famous for having a cat in the comics, especially back in the day. But they've given, she had Krypto in this original comic, but yeah, originally Superman was the dog person, and she was the cat person. I'm with Superman. I have his attitude towards dogs. I like them, but I'm not watching them long term. I really liked the Superman movie. I can only hope that this would be as pleasant a surprise. But yeah, I didn't find this offensive. Some of you found it really offensive. And I guess, I can see why. And I think that, James Gunn really should be going over everything with a fine-tooth comb, being like, might this be offensive for no reason, right? I mean, I don't think it's a good enough gag that it's worth making, potentially making. And also, it's, I've always said that James Gunn has a taste issue, and a family film where the dog's urinating on camera and the lead actor has a drinking issue, maybe that's one of the reasons that the movie didn't get a bigger budget. Hope she's not. I mean, that was a food packet on the floor, right? So there she is, reminding me a lot of Carol Danvers in her own spaceship. And some of you have said, well, how many ways can you portray someone off in space by themselves in their spaceship? Thank you very much. And that's fair. That's fair. But then you have to maybe say, well, maybe the story has been told a little too many times. Or maybe I should think about how the story is different. It falls on you to find the variation. Okay. I like the little sparkle, though, around the DC logo. I think that's very nice. It's a little comic booky. It's a little space-like. It's fun. It's fun. I think it's fun. I don't know that. I mean, again, I feel like this movie is interestingly like a little female-coded, but I worry, just like the Marvels, how it will do with the male audience. It's its biggest audience. So here comes the bus. She's basically at the bus stop. This was so the Marvels to me. I mean, it's even a similar outfit, in fact. Like if, like she and Carol could be sisters. See, Brie Larson's Carol Danvers, they could be sisters. So she's waiting for the bus. Here it is. Space bus. There's the space bus driver. There's some humor to that. I like that. Like the the age-old repartee of bus driver and passenger. Hope she pays her fare. So boy, wow. I guess alcohol is a sterilizer, but she's drinking someone else's drink, man. Uncool. So this looks like, if you told me this looks like every Guardians of the Galaxy set. One of you even said, did they just like Sinners bought the Blade costumes, did they buy the Guardians of the Galaxy set and go, yoink, you're not going to use them anymore? I mean, you could pan over and you could see the Guardians of the Galaxy sitting a table over. I mean, wow. I liked her delivery on this a lot, though. Saying that the 23 is going to be the year, but, the bar's not very high. I thought that was a delight. I thought it was a great line. I thought the delivery on it was fantastic. By the way, I spent like 20 minutes on hair yesterday. I think this trailer makes it clear that I was correct. And, some of you have said, well, Carrie Russell's running around the Diplomat with her hair not combed. And if you actually watched that show, you would see it was a running gag about that being, I think it's a fine line. I think anyone would be like, maybe you could do a little something with it, Like you turn to the person and go, hey, she can wear her hair however she goddamn wants. And then you go, when that person leaves, you go, but maybe you should fix it just zhuzh it maybe a little. Okay. Why is there an Earth disco ball up here? It's so Guardians of the Galaxy. I like Krypto. He's a cute dog. Who's a good dog? You're a good dog. Who's a good CGI dog? Is it from director Craig Gillespie? Is it? It's so James Gunn. I mean, it's crazy that someone else's name is on it. So yes, I thought it was funny. One of you was like, another sky beam. Yeah, there's a lot of sky beams in sci-fi movies, particularly comic book ones. They just had them in Fantastic Four. They were all over, Zack Snyder's movies. There's a lot of sky beams, but I was just like, Bottle City? And some of you asked me that. Now, in the comic that this is based on, they in fact put a dome over their city. So Kandor is the original bottle city, bottled by Brainiac, right, at his Space City bottle factory. And he collects cities, right? So that's Kandor and, stuff like that. And Supergirl has sometimes lived there. They change storylines in comics all the time. But in this original story, Argo, they put up a barrier. So as you can see in this very trailer, Kara says Krypton did not explode like originally, but in this new storyline, it becomes a dead planet. So they don't die right away, but they're basically a dead city walking, or a dead city kind of living, which is interesting. That's why she's such a mess. Not everyone around her died slowly, which I think is horrific. I was like, why don't you guys, I mean, like, word is they got a baby off this planet. Maybe we could make some ships ourselves. I mean, like, we're just going to sit here and feel sad for ourselves. Yes. But yeah, I was thinking Bottle City too, but and Brainiac of course is coming up. So it would seem to make sense to kind of go in that direction, especially because they've changed Clark's parents to being evil. So it's like, oh, let's bring in some Kryptonians and it could be really interesting. And maybe his parents would be like, General Zod is the son we wish we had. I mean, I think that's fascinating. As I said when I covered Superman. But there's a very good chance this is just what they did in the comic and this is just a force field. Well, just a force field. We've read a lot of sci-fi stories, haven't we? Okay. So that's her mom standing out. She's like, I'm wearing the sparkles because I'm a character with a name. Thank you very much. She looks nice. See, maybe that's Kara's future. She looks very nice. Okay, they should have put the Bernard from the Santa Claus as her father. He should have been in this teaser trailer. That would have been a real treat. So that's Ruthie. I'm sure this kid's adorable. She has a cool accent. I thought it was funny. One of you was like, "Why does Kara have an American accent when she didn't grow up on Krypton?" And I was like, first of all, I was like, "Come on, man. Do you really want me to sit here and come up with a Kryptonian accent?" But then I think that Gal Gadot having her the way she speaks worked very well for an Amazonian who was not from man's world. So at first I was like, that's a lot of extra work. And then I was like, but maybe we should do it. I'd be like, go hire a linguist. They can't be that expensive. But this isn't what Ruthie looked like at all in the comic. This is a real budget version. And I am sorry to say, because DC has such an extensive history with the CW, it seems like a CW version of Ruthie. Like the whole point of the movies is that Ruthie should look like Ruthie, and not also like a Guardians of the Galaxy alien character either. I mean, these are two very distinct styles. All right, like Ruthie seems to be wearing a bomber jacket, like Carol Danvers. All right, so yeah, there's the dome, the barrier. See, everything's falling around them, but they're just gonna live here. But also, I'm like, Wakanda Forever already did the funeral in all white. You guys, you got. Someone has to raise their hand and be like, I watch a lot of movies, but you know what? So do our viewers, so do our fans. So somebody else already did this. But there's a Kryptonian coffin. And so she's like, what was it like with everyone dying? Okay. What kind of a question is that, man? I mean, like, that is not bar talk. Thanks very much. But that's a good line when she says, Krypton did in fact not die that day. The gods are more cruel than that, or not that kind, something like that. But it was good. Maybe this Anna Noguera or whatever can write. Okay. I don't think that's a line from the Tom King comic. I haven't read it in a while. Let's see here. So I like her screaming, even though she's clearly got CGI. She's got a serious case of CGI herself. But, and also, it's hard. Furiosa also already did this. So you got to be really careful, But, I mean, I do find it compelling. I think that Millie Alcock is really selling the human drama. I'm connecting with her. Emotionally. All right, so here she is on Knowhere. I mean, that is Knowhere. It's Knowhere, even down to the multicolors, which I like. I like Christmas tree lights as much as pretty much everyone. But again, it's Guardians of the Galaxy. And she's like, this is going to go poorly for all of you. And I'm like, well, I would like to see that. I do wish they'd highlighted her powers more here. We never get to see a female brawler. To this day, one of the coolest things was Wonder Woman's fight in Grudge Match. I bring it up all the time because it is yet to be repeated. I think that the original Wonder Woman movie came kind of close with some, like, she was just so powerful. But we still have not seen a woman who is just like, Rogue. That's why so many people are like, can we get powerful Rogue already? And that's why when Captain Marvel came in Avengers Endgame and poked a hole through through Thanos' ship, I was loving that. That was fantastic. I want more of that. Like a whole movie of that, please. And I had kind of hoped that's what Supergirl would be. And maybe it is, again. Although there's one action shot here that I don't think is very promising. But hold on. It's kind of promising. Okay. So I guess she likes that because I think that's what she's using later. She's like, ooh, me keepy. I don't know where she's going to keep it. So here we go. Big hardcore fight. The whole point is she doesn't have to have muscles, right? Because she's Kryptonian, so she doesn't need them. But, that didn't stop David Cornsweet. He's not a skinny Superman. That was when they did an alternate universe comic where there was a small, skinny Superman. I got to tell you, it was fantastic. But it wasn't the main version of the character. But yeah, I mean, she's not, to me, Millie Alcock is not selling her action sequences. I'd be like, you got to spend more time on stunt coordination because you're just not there yet. Facially, she's selling it, but physically, I'd be like, I don't think she's ever done any fighting ever of any kind. I can't believe that is the villain who had such an interesting look. I mean, sure, he looked like a pirate, a dashing pirate, not particularly spacey, but it was cool. It was, it fit with the really kind of like the fantasy space visuals of the overall comic. But this just screams James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, it doesn't seem like something out of DC at all. And any variation of DC, from comics to animation to live action. So it's like we literally cut to a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So, Ruthie does have a cool sword, and I must say, that is a cool sword. Again, I think they're a little low on the budget. I think it could have been cooler. I think it could have more detail work. I mean, think like Channel Wicked. That's it. Oh my God, that's what this was supposed to have been. This was supposed to be the superhero, Wicked is very superhero coded, especially the first half, which is why I think one of the reasons it was so successful. John Chu did that intentionally. But this was supposed to be like a really kick-ass superhero Wicked, with the costume and the production design intricacy and color, although people complained about the color grading for Wicked, but look what it could have looked like. I mean, that's fascinating to me. That is what it was supposed to have been. So they're on the bus, and she's like, does everyone have powers like you? And I'm like, I saw Adam Warlock do this exact same sequence in the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and he was cooler. She says, no, it's just two of us. I mean, you wouldn't even know that little girl was alien. I'm like, dude, we can't do something? Okay. All right. And no, she says, it's just the two of us. There she uses her heat vision. That's cool. I love heat vision. Although I think Homelander has really commandeered heat vision these days. Okay. So, poor Krypto. Krypto lives a hard life. Or maybe she's just bonding with him while he sleeps. But there he is. He looks so cute. All right. So that's Lobo. That's our one Lobo shot. I think it's nuts that they didn't use him more. I thought at first that was not his cigar, but I thought he had one of those collars that deactivates abilities, which always have a light right there. And I thought that's what this was. But no, he's smoking a stogie. And I gotta say, he looks great. I mean, I can't really see him that well. But I mean, look, by the way, if you're not familiar with Lobo, the character, he's basically Jason Momoa. And I'm loving Jason Momoa these days. I thought he was so great in Minecraft. I wish that he was the co-lead of this movie. I think it would help it immensely. So she's like, what's Superman like? Okay, there she's flying. Take off that trench coat. This is some murky CGI. Whee! I guess that's when she goes to scream. And so there she does take it off. And you're like, meh, put it back on. Okay? And she goes, Superman sees the good in people and I see the truth. And that is an excellent line. Although the expression on her face doesn't really seem to go with that. It seems like, no, you seem right now like you're seeing the good. But I mean, wow, talk about not looking after your actors. We talked a lot about the hair, so we've already gone over that, which I feel could look a little better here. But let's talk about this costume. Oh, this is such a bad debut shot. I'm sure there are shots where it must look better than this. So she needs, again, get Paul Tazewell on the phone, please. She needs shoulder pads for the love of God. I'm like, and then her arms, I mean, they're trying to give her muscles, but that makes her shoulders look too small. I'm like, you forgot to build out her shoulders. So she looks like, no person who is a personal trainer would be like, feel they did a good job here, right? They'd be like, oh, I built you out incorrectly. Then they're not doing her any favors with her neck, right? Like the collar should, just by the way, this isn't just about Millie Alcock. For those of you who don't know, Elizabeth Taylor, who is considered one of the most beautiful women on the silver screen of all time. Edith Head is known for having built Elizabeth Taylor with costuming. From the waist to the silhouette to the neck to the chin, everything. It's very well known in fashion circles and costume circles that, Edith Head felt that Elizabeth Taylor had a lot of flaws and worked very hard to counter them. And again, you would never know it based on the costuming that Edith Head did. And I mean, this is what Millie Alcock, I think this does not only not hide some of her issues, but I think that it accentuates them, which is bizarre. You're like, what? I mean, that collar should be higher on the sides. I just kind of feel bad, that uh, it should look better. It's frustrating. Okay. And, she's not wearing a lot of makeup. She's going for the natural look. But I feel she could have, at the very least, I would have given her maybe some more mascara. Just something to help her eyes pop a little bit, right? Like the eyes should be the most noticeable, not the eyebrows. Like these are, and she had great makeup, by the way, in her cameo in the end of Superman. Like she looked great there. Very natural look, but they did a nice job with the gloss. She seems to have totally, like, what did she just eat? You got to reapply the gloss, girl. We all know this. Okay. I would put a little sparkle on her cheeks, a little highlighter. I think she would have looked really great. I feel bad because Millie Alcock's very pretty. So yeah, I don't believe that she's pulling diddly squat here. She is not selling this. I'm devastated. She's not only wearing heels instead of wedges, but now she has short heels on. There's no woman who would be like, yes, let me wear this. This is called, this is a heel length. Sometimes it's called kitten heels, but they're not usually that chunky. This is a heel length that gives away and screams, you can't walk in heels. So if you can't walk in heels, just don't wear them. Don't wear these like, clearly I can't walk in heels shoes. I feel bad. The rest of the costume, well, hold on. I'll say something positive about it in a minute. So she looks like she's holding on to it. She looks like she's holding on to that instead of pulling it. Let's see that again. Yeah, she looks like she's just holding on to it. She looks cool there, though. I mean, I like seeing Supergirl have this cool action sequence that could really literally be in any movie. And I liked seeing this here. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool, Supergirl. Although, where is the cape porn of her cousin? His cape his cape. Superman's cape was its own freaking character. And it was beautiful to behold. I wish that she'd talked more to David Cornsweet and been like, how are you playing this, man? Tell me some of your tricks. Because that should look better there. That cape should be like, you should be like, ooh, cape. Capity cape, cape, cape. So that's cool. So there you have that kind of like comic book. That's very Frank Miller's Sin City, actually. But then look at this. They give her like the She-Ra, Captain Marvel, like, like that's for the ladies. It's like, hey, girls and the gays. It's like, hey. And you're like, that is some nice logo bling. I mean, I really like it. I wish that was reciprocated in the film. I'd be like, whatever you're trying to do with this little logo jewelry, it should be in the movie. Like one of the best things about the first Captain Marvel that they lost that quality in the sequel, was that she totally like did a literal glow up and she looked phenomenal. You're like, oh, sparkly, I love it. I mean, I love sparkles. Sparkles are pretty great. And so I think this movie needs more sparkles. You know that thing that James Gunn did in Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, where he called it Harley Vision? And like, whenever he did her Harley Quinn sequences, it had all these like fun like emojis and like stuff like that. I gotta say, if you really leaned into that, maybe they should have done something like this for this movie with sparkles and stuff, I don't know. And just make it a stylistic choice. It's not anyone's vision. It's just like, that's what we did in this movie. And you'd be like, it's weird, but it's so beautiful. I don't care. And then you could sell lots of sparkle merchandise. I mean, think of the merchandise, James. I don't see you selling any merch off of this. And there's the comic. Look at that comic, right? Look at the sparkle right on the cover. Look, that's Ruthie. There's that headpiece, totally missing. Look at the way the radiation comes off of the red sun. I mean, it's really stunning. All right. And you please do read the comics. Comics are fabulous. Not as much as they used to be, but they're still good. Okay, so let me get back to the poster here. That's my thoughts on this trailer. This is just a teaser. But I mean, I don't think it's going to somehow suddenly become dramatically different. But I like Millie Alcock a lot. I like Jason Momoa a lot. So I think that comic book fans and DC fans, like the hardcore ones, will of course go see it. So that's why I'm putting it for around 400. I think it's going to perform just like Black Widow and Thunderbolts, which is not what James Gunn needs right now, as Warner Brothers is about to be bought by somebody. All right, so share those thoughts down below. Thank you again for going over this with me. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.